Kale awoke to the alien scent of star lilies and the disorienting softness of Xylosian silks, a prisoner of gratitude, or something far more complex. Consciousness returned like a slow tide, bringing with it a throbbing ache in his back and a profound sense of displacement. He lay on a surface that yielded too comfortably, the air thick with the cloying sweetness of unfamiliar flora. Definitely not the med bay of his battered freighter. He blinked, vision clearing. The room was opulent, curved walls shimmering with a pearlescent light. Xylosian design. Sleek, organic, and entirely too expensive for his usual haunts. A figure moved in his peripheral vision. Lyra. She was dabbing something cool, bioregenerative gel, he vaguely registered, onto the searing pain in his shoulder with an expression of intense concentration. Her usually immaculate purple hair was slightly disheveled, a few strands escaping their intricate braiding to frame a face etched with concern. "Easy," she murmured, her voice like wind chimes, soft yet resonant. Her violet eyes, when they met his, were a startling mix of relief and a deeper, unreadable emotion. An unspoken connection hummed in the air, taut and unsettling. "You took quite a beating." Kale grunted, testing his limbs. "Weak. Definitely weak. But alive." That was a start. "Habit," he rasped, his throat dry. "Where?" "My personal transport. We're en route to Ethelgard, my home." She set aside the applicator, her movements precise. "Thank you, Kale Rourke. You saved my life." The gratitude was formal, yet her gaze held something more. Suspicion. Or was it simply the Xylosian way? He pushed himself up on an elbow, ignoring the protest from his abused muscles. Pragmatism was his oldest friend. "Right. Let's cut through the stardust. Where exactly is Ethelgard? Who are you, really? And who wants you dead badly enough to try it in broad daylight on a cesspool like Port Cynthia?" His bluntness made her flinch, just slightly. Good. He needed answers, not polite evasions. Lyra straightened, a subtle shift transforming her from concerned caregiver back into the noblewoman he'd glimpsed through the chaos. "Ethelgard is the capital city of Xylos, the Xylosian homeworld. And I am Lady Lyra Valeriana, of House Valerius." She paused, letting the name sink in. He knew enough galactic scuttlebutt to recognize it. House Valerius. A major player. Old blood, new ideas. Often a recipe for trouble. As for who wants me dead, the list could be regrettably long. The attackers were likely mercenaries, probably hired by a rival faction. Perhaps House Forlag. House Forlag. Kale's mind sifted through political briefings he'd skimmed. Traditionalists. Xenophobes, some said. Why them specifically? House Valerius has long advocated for progressive interspecies relations, Lyra explained, her fingers tracing the edge of the console beside her. My father believes our strength lies in adaptation, in seeking new alliances. Such views are unpopular with those who cling to outdated notions of Xylosian purity. She didn't need to spell it out. Political intrigue. The galaxy was rotten with it. His gaze snagged on the amulet she wore, a piece he'd barely registered during the fight. Now, in the calm, he saw it more clearly. It wasn't just jewelry. It was ancient, crafted from a dark, unidentifiable metal, etched with intricate symbols that seemed to writhe just at the edge of perception. It pulsed with a faint, internal light, almost like a captured star. That's quite a necklace, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Family heirloom. A flicker, there and gone, in her violet eyes. She touched it, a fleeting, almost protective gesture. Something like that. Deflection. Clear as a cracked visor. Interesting. What was she hiding? Suddenly, the sterile calm of the room fractured. A flash of searing heat, the roar of collapsing dura steel, the acrid smell of burning fuel. Screams. A face, twisted in agony, calling his name. Cale flinched, the phantom pain a cold fist in his gut. He blinked, the Xylosian chamber reasserting itself. Just a ghost. Another echo from the Cygnus rebellion, the mission that had cost him too much. He shoved it down. Not now. Lyra was watching him, her head tilted. Are you all right? Peachy, he lied, forcing the tremor from his voice. Just a bit of atmospheric turbulence. She didn't look convinced but let it slide. Instead, her expression became more focused, almost businesslike. Given the clarity of the recent threat, and your undeniable skill, Cale Rourke, I have a proposition. I require a personal protector until I reach Ethelgard and can assess the true extent of this danger. Your actions in Port Cynthia demonstrated a unique aptitude for survival. A job offer. Wrapped in silk and scented with star lilies. Cale was wary. Bodyguarding nobles wasn't his preferred line of work. Too much bowing, too much smiling, too many hidden knives. And yet, he felt a reluctant pull. An obligation, maybe. Or just plain, stubborn curiosity about this Xylosian lady who faced assassins with a strange calm and deflected questions about her jewelry. He saw the vulnerability beneath her noble poise, the faint tremor in her hands she tried so hard to conceal. She was in over her head. And damn it all, he didn't like seeing anyone in over their head. This Ethelgard, he began slowly, weighing his words, it's likely to be even less friendly than Port Cynthia, isn't it? Lyra's lips curved into a small, almost genuine smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. The shadows of worry remained, deep and unsettling. Oh, infinitely less friendly, Cale. My home is beautiful, but it can be as treacherous as any fringe world alleyway. Perhaps more so, because the vipers there wear such exquisite skins. Cale had braced himself for treachery, but Lyra's warning hardly prepared him for the sheer, breathtaking reality of Ethelgard. The journey from the chaotic fringes of Port Cynthia had been swift, the Xylosian vessel a whisper of advanced technology cutting through the void. As they descended, the Xylosian homeworld unfurled below, a sapphire gem veined with silver rivers and emerald forests. And then Ethelgard itself, it punched the air from Cale's lungs. It wasn't a city, it was a symphony of light and crystal, towers like frozen music piercing a sky of impossible clarity. Beautiful, yes. But Lyra's words echoed, as treacherous as any fringe world alleyway. Ethelgard glittered like a trap forged from starlight and whispers. Cale sensed that every courtesy was a veiled threat, every smile a hidden blade. His human physiology, the subtle differences in his gait and build, even the texture of his plasteel weave armor peeking from beneath the borrowed Xylosian cloak, drew immediate attention. Stares followed him like searchlights, some curious, some disdainful, many unreadable. The air thrummed with an ancient, complex society, and he was the discordant note. The House Valerius estate was a sprawling complex of interconnected crystalline domes and serene, bioluminescent gardens, a testament to centuries of accumulated wealth and power. Opulent, certainly. But to Cale, it felt more like a gilded cage, every polished surface reflecting his own unease. He was presented to Lord Valerius, Lyra's father, in a vast, sun-drenched chamber where holographic star charts drifted like captured nebulae. The Lord of House Valerius was an imposing figure, taller than most Xylosians Kale had seen, his purple skin a shade darker, almost indigo, and his eyes held an unnerving stillness, like ancient ice. Lord Valerius inclined his head, a gesture of regal acknowledgement. Kale Rourke. My daughter owes you her life. House Valerius is in your debt. The words were smooth, the gratitude seemingly sincere, but Kale didn't miss the calculating glint deep within those ancient eyes. This was a being who measured every word, every action, in millennia of political maneuvering. Your unique skills are evident. Perhaps your arrival signals a new era for Ethelgard, a time to embrace outsider perspectives, to recognize unique strengths. The way he said unique strength sent a faint chill down Kale's spine. Was that a compliment, or a subtle assessment of a potentially useful tool? In the days that followed, as Kale settled into his role as Lyra's shadow, their relationship began to shift. The initial tension eased, replaced by a cautious curiosity. They shared quiet moments, often late in the Xylosian night cycle, in one of the estate's secluded sky gardens. Lyra, surprisingly open when away from the prying eyes of the court, spoke of Ethelgard's complex social strata, its art, its philosophies. Kale, in turn, offered carefully curated glimpses of the harsh realities of the fringe worlds, of human resilience born from struggle. The cultural clashes were inevitable, sometimes leading to moments of dry humor. Xylosian concepts of personal space were fluid. He nearly upended a priceless-looking sculpture trying to give Lyra what he considered a respectful distance, only for her to drift closer, oblivious. Their food, while artfully presented, often consisted of things Kale couldn't identify and wasn't entirely sure were meant for consumption. It's an acquired taste, Lyra would say, a small smile playing on her lips as he eyed a quivering, iridescent jelly. One afternoon, Lyra led him to the Gardens of Ancestors, a hushed, reverent space where towering, translucent crystals pulsed with soft light. These are our memory stones, she explained, her voice subdued. They record the lineage, the history, the very essence of House Valerius. As they walked, she spoke of a great schism in Xylosian history, a devastating internal conflict centuries ago. It was about our future, she said, her gaze distant. Some believed in absolute genetic purity, in preserving what we were. Others, like my ancestors, argued that true strength lies in adaptation, in embracing change, even if it comes from unexpected sources. Her hand instinctively went to the amulet at her throat. The topic seemed to weigh heavily on her. Kale's protective instincts, always sharp, were honed to a razor's edge in Ethelgard. He saw the subtle knives and courtly language, the shifting allegiances, the ambition that coiled beneath the polished veneer of Xylosian nobility. The threats weren't just external, he sensed undercurrents within House Valerius itself, factions vying for Lord Valerius's favor. And Lyra, for all her composure, was clearly stressed. The upcoming conclave of houses was a constant topic of hushed, urgent discussion among the Valerius household staff, and Lyra grew more withdrawn each time it was mentioned. What was this conclave? And why did it fill her with such dread? He tried to burn off his own restlessness in the estate's combat simulator, a marvel of Xylosian technology that could replicate any environment, any foe. He pushed himself hard, the familiar burn of exertion a welcome anchor. But the ghosts were more persistent here. During one particularly grueling session against simulated Cygnus corsairs, the flashback hit him with stunning force. Not just heat and screams this time, but a voice, achingly familiar, bellowing his name in a tone of desperate betrayal, Rourke. Don't leave me, damn you. Rourke. He stumbled out of the simulator, gasping, the polished floor of the training chamber cold beneath his trembling hands. The past wasn't just a shadow, it was a living thing, with claws. Lyra found him there moments later, her usual poise replaced by a flicker of genuine alarm at his pallor. "The phantoms of your past seem to haunt you even here, Kale," she observed, her voice soft, laced with an empathy that surprised him. Before he could formulate a suitably gruff denial, a stern-faced Xylosian attendant, resplendent in House Valerius livery, glided into the chamber, his expression unreadable. The attendant bowed stiffly. "Lady Lyra, your presence is requested. Lord Valerius summons you to his private chambers. It concerns the final arrangements for the conclave, and, it would seem, Lord Malachor Forlag's most recent, and most unwelcome, provocation." Kale adjusted the unfamiliar stiffness of the ceremonial armor. It was a masterpiece of Xylosian craftsmanship, presented by Lord Valerius himself, lighter than it looked, plasteel weave layered with some kind of shimmering, crystalline filament that seemed to drink the light. Functional, Kale had made sure of that, but still, flashy. He felt like a prized exhibit. "Just try not to start any inter-house wars while I'm on duty," he told Lyra with a wry grin as they prepared to enter the great hall. She was breathtaking in a formal gown of deepest violet, the strange amulet nestled at her throat. Lyra's smile was strained. With Lord Malachor Forlag present, Kale, war is always just a breath away. The massive, ornate doors to the conclave chamber, the traditional meeting place for the Xylosian noble houses, swept open with a silent hiss, revealing an amphitheater buzzing with power and barely concealed animosity. The conclave of houses began not with a gavel, but with a poisoned word from Lord Malachor Forlag, aimed directly at the human stain on House Valerius's honor. The air in the ancient hall, usually thick with the scent of rare Xylosian incense and the murmur of polite, deadly political maneuvering, crackled with a new, sharper tension. Kale stood a respectful pace behind Lyra's high-backed seat, his presence an unavoidable spectacle. Every Xylosian noble, arrayed in their house colors, their faces masks of aristocratic disdain or predatory curiosity, seemed to fixate on him, the lone human in their sacred gathering. Lord Malachor Forlag, the patriarch of House Forlag, was every bit the serpent Kale had imagined. Charismatic, his voice smooth as aged brandy, but with eyes like chips of obsidian. He rose, a vision in stark black and silver, his every movement a study in controlled arrogance. "Esteemed members of the conclave," his voice resonated through the hall, "we gather to discuss matters of grave import to the future of Xylos. And yet, House Valerius sees fit to bring an off-worlder. A human mercenary, I am told." His gaze flicked to Kale, dripping contempt. "Are we to believe the security of a great house now rests on the unpredictable skills of such a primitive creature? Or perhaps Lady Lyra Valeriana simply has an eclectic taste in companionship?" The insult, personal and pointed, hung in the air. Gasps, quickly stifled, rippled through some delegations. Kale tensed, his hand instinctively moving towards the pulse sidearm concealed beneath his ceremonial sash, but Lyra's almost imperceptible shake of her head stayed him. She rose, poised and unruffled, a beacon of Valerius blue and silver. "Lord Forlag," Lyra's voice, though softer than his, cut through the silence with surprising fire. "Your concern for my house's honor, and indeed my personal judgment, is touching, if misplaced. A delicate emphasis, a perfectly aimed barb. My protector, Kale Rourke, proved his worth not with words, but with actions that saved my life from those who would see House Valerius weakened." Her eyes swept the assembly. As for humanity, perhaps some in this chamber would do well to consult more recent off-world studies regarding their unconventional adaptability and tenacious spirit. The stellar concord itself has noted their remarkable progress. To dismiss an entire species based on outdated prejudice is not a sign of strength, Lord Forlag, but of a dangerous inflexibility. It was a masterclass in political defense, turning Forlag's insult into a subtle indictment of his own narrow-mindedness. A murmur of surprise and grudging respect went through the conclave. Lord Valerius, seated amongst the elders, gave a nearly invisible nod of approval. Forlag's lips thinned, but he merely inclined his head, a predator biding its time. During the first recess, a chaotic affair of hushed arguments and shifting alliances in the antechambers, Lyra pulled Cale aside. Her composure was fraying. "He's trying to isolate us," she said, her voice low and urgent. "House Forlag will oppose our proposal for expanded trade agreements with the fringe worlds. They know it will strengthen Valerius, and they fear any alliance that includes non-Xylosians." Cale processed that. Trade with the fringe worlds. That could actually benefit human colonies, open new avenues. Forlag wasn't just an enemy of House Valerius, he was an obstacle to progress. The reception that evening was a glittering, treacherous swamp of Xylosian high society. Cale, sticking close to Lyra, felt 1,000 eyes on him. His human senses, less attuned to the subtle pheromonal cues of Xylosian social dynamics, focused instead on an older skill, spotting trouble. He noticed a liveried Forlag attendant, seemingly engrossed in refilling refreshment goblets, linger a moment too long near Lyra's secluded alcove where her personal datapad and a ceremonial cloak lay. The attendant's movements were just a little too precise, a little too focused. Too much like an operative. Making a quiet excuse to Lyra, Cale melted into the periphery of the crowd, his larger frame surprisingly adept at navigating the throng. He tracked the attendant to a darkened corridor service access. Sure enough, the Xylosian was attempting to discreetly slot a slim data chip into the interface port of Lyra's discarded cloak, no doubt intending for it to be discovered later. Espionage. Classic. Cale moved like a phantom. Before the attendant could react, a hand like a steel clamp closed on his wrist, another covering his mouth. "Bad form, friend," Cale whispered, his voice a cold threat. "Planting party favors is a quick way to lose fingers in my part of the galaxy." There was a brief, silent struggle. Cale, relying on leverage and surprise, disarmed the attendant, both of the data chip and a nasty little vibro-knife. He palmed the chip. "Tell Lord Forlag his methods are as unoriginal as his politics." He then released the terrified Xylosian with a shove towards the service exit, a clear warning to disappear. The attendant scrambled away without a backward glance. Later, in the privacy of Lyra's heavily secured chambers, Cale presented the data chip. "Found this little gem trying to make friends with your cloak." Lyra took it, her face paling as she interfaced it with her own secure reader. The contents scrolled across a small holodisplay, fabricated transaction logs, falsified communications. All of it designed to implicate House Valerius in the smuggling of forbidden Kreeskism technology, a crime that would mean ruin and disgrace. This was high-stakes political maneuvering. "They're more desperate than I thought," she breathed, her hand unconsciously rising to touch the strange, ancient amulet at her throat. Her violet eyes, when she looked up at Cale, were no longer just shaken, they held a new, steely resolve. "This isn't just about trade, Cale. This forbidden technology, what is Forlag really after?" The question hung heavy between them, a prelude to a storm he knew was about to break. Lyra held the data chip, its cool, alien metal a stark contrast to the sudden tremor in her hand. Her knuckles were white. "Father must be told. Forlag has overplayed his hand." They found Lord Valerius not in his sprawling, data-filled study, but in the High Solar Observatory, a circular room at the apex of the estate's central spire. Its transparent dome offered a dizzying, panoramic view of Ethelgard, now beginning to glitter under the twin moons. He was gazing, not at the city, but at a vast, slowly rotating holographic depiction of a long-dead star system. Ancient star charts, inscribed on metallic scrolls and glowing crystal tablets, lined the curved walls, interspersed with enigmatic Xylosian artifacts that seemed to hum with latent energy. The air here felt different. Older. "The time for secrets is over," Lord Valerius said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate with the very structure of the tower. He didn't turn as they entered. "The stars themselves hold the key to our survival, and our curse." He gestured, and the holographic star system dissolved, replaced by intricate, intertwining strands of genetic code. The truth Lord Valerius finally unveiled was more shocking than any forelag accusation. The blood of forgotten human starfarers flowed within his own veins, and Kale was not just a protector, but potentially a key. He spoke of a lost human colony ship, a vessel named the Odyssey's Child, that had limped into the Xylosian system millennia ago, long before humanity's current re-emergence into the galactic community following events like the Cygnus Rebellion. This was the true, first human contact, a secret buried so deep it had become myth. "Our ancestor, Valerius the Visionary," Lord Valerius continued, his indigo eyes fixed on Kale, saw not contamination, but potential. He integrated the survivors, their human DNA, into our lineage. He believed their adaptability, their chaotic vitality, would strengthen us, prevent the stagnation that has crippled so many elder races. He pointed to a specific, complex sequence within the glowing hologram. "This is the forbidden knowledge House Forlag suspects we guard. They wish to either eradicate it, a cleansing of what they see as a taint, or worse, weaponize it for their own ascent." Lyra gasped, her hand flying to the amulet at her throat. "The amulet is a relic from the Odyssey's Child," Lord Valerius confirmed. "A command sigil, a genetic key, its full purpose is still a mystery, even to us. But it responds to the original human bloodline." His gaze on Kale was intense. "The attack in Port Cynthia was no random act of piracy, Lyra. Forlag knew you were off-world, vulnerable. He has agents everywhere, always probing, always searching for this truth." He then turned fully to Kale. "And you're hiring, Kale Rourke, it was not entirely happenstance. I admit, when Lyra spoke of a human who saved her, a human of extraordinary resilience, I saw a test. A possibility. Your human essence, as it were, might be crucial to unlocking what our ancestors began." Kale felt a cold fury mix with a dawning, reluctant understanding. Manipulation. He'd been a pawn, a variable in some ancient Xylosian game. And yet, the sheer audacity of it, the scale of this secret, was staggering. Before he could voice the bitter questions forming on his tongue, the observatory was plunged into a blood-red emergency lighting. Alarms shrieked, a piercing, ululating cry that echoed through the crystalline structure of the estate. "They're here," Lord Valerius stated, his voice utterly calm amidst the rising chaos. "Forlag. He must have learned of your discovery, or simply grown impatient." Holographic tactical displays flared into existence around them, showing multiple breaches along the estate's perimeter. A direct, surgical strike. Fast. Brutal. Aimed at the heart. Kale's combat instincts, honed by years of desperate firefights and impossible odds, surged to the forefront, overriding his anger. This was his element. "Test this, Valerius," he snarled, his hand already drawing his pulse sidearm. He simultaneously triggered a remote sequence on his wrist-mounted comm unit. Contingencies active. Throughout the estate, Sections of ornamental crystal formations, seemingly decorative, suddenly reconfigured, revealing concealed automated turrets and energy emitters, Kale's secret upgrades, installed under the guise of routine maintenance analysis Lord Valerius had vaguely authorized. The Xylosian Lord had wanted contingencies, Kale had given him teeth. The first wave of four-legged shock troops, clad in black and silver assault gear, blasted through the observatory's reinforced doors. But Lyra was no longer the composed diplomat. In a move that stunned Kale, she shed her formal outer robe, revealing a form-fitting undergarment designed for movement. She snatched a ceremonial energy staff from a display case. It looked decorative, but hummed with lethal power in her grasp. Her movements were swift, economical, deadly, pure Xylosian martial arts. She wasn't just a political target, she was a warrior. Looks like the Valerius line has more than a few surprises, human. Lyra called out, her voice ringing with a fierce joy as she deflected a searing energy bolt with her staff, the air crackling around them. Kale, a grim smile touching his own lips, dived for cover, returning fire. The fight for House Valerius's deepest secret, and perhaps the future of two species, had begun. Amidst the chaos of the battle, Kale saw Lord Valerius stumble, struck by a ricocheting blast as he tried to shield an ancient console displaying swirling, complex genetic data. The sequence, they must not get the prime sequence, he gasped, pointing towards a heavily armored vault set into the far wall, just as more heavily armed four-legged shock troops, their faces grim and determined, began to breach the main entrance to the observatory. Kale kicked the vault door controls, the emergency lockdown sequence hissing as reinforced plasteel shutters slammed into place. They were sealed inside the solar observatory, him, Lyra, and her gravely wounded father, with the precious, dangerous prime sequence genetic code. "If we're going down, Valerius," Kale yelled over the growing cacophony of explosions and weapon fire from outside, "we're taking this whole damn spire with us." He felt a grim satisfaction as the estate's automated defenses, his defenses, opened up on the attackers. Lyra, her face pale but set with determination, rushed to her father's side. Lord Valerius was clutching his side, his breath shallow, but his eyes still held that unnerving, ancient calm. The sequence. "Kale, it cannot fall to four-leg." "It won't," Kale promised, checking his pulse sidearm's charge. He glanced at Lyra. She was gripping her amulet, its strange, internal light flaring erratically, pulsing in time with the thrumming energy of the nearby console that displayed the Valerius ancestral genetic data. "Perhaps," she said, her voice a sudden, wild thought amidst the chaos, a spark of defiance igniting in her violet eyes, "we don't have to go down at all." In the heart of a dying house, with assassins at the door, the fate of two species rested on a human mercenary's grit and an alien noble's impossible choice. Kale took charge of their desperate defense. He knew the observatory's layout now, thanks to Lyra's earlier tours and his own ingrained habit of mapping every potential bolt hole. He directed Lyra to a reinforced section of the curved wall, using a heavy artifact-laden console as cover for her and her father. "Stay down. And keep him alive." The main doors to the observatory imploded inwards with a deafening roar. Silhouetted against the raging fires and emergency strobes from the corridor beyond stood Lord Malachor Fourlag himself, flanked by his elite guard, Xylosian warriors in midnight black armor, their energy weapons already seeking targets. Fourlag's handsome face was a mask of triumphant fury. "Valerius." Fourlag's voice boomed, overriding the alarms. "Your pathetic dynasty ends tonight. Hand over the prime sequence and the girl. Perhaps I'll grant you a swift death." As for the human filth, his eyes, burning with a fanatic's zeal, found Kale. He will learn the price of meddling in Xylosian affairs. Forlag's motives were chillingly clear: either purify the Xylosian race by destroying House Valerius and all evidence of their human hybrid ancestry, or, perhaps even more sinister, weaponize the Valerius's unique hybrid vigor for the sole benefit of House Forlag, creating a new, dominant Xylosian strain under his control. It was a climactic confrontation, a microcosm of the larger battle raging outside. Cale versus Forlag's best. He was outnumbered, outgunned in terms of raw firepower, but Cale Rourke had made a career of spitting in the eye of impossible odds. He moved with a brutal efficiency, his pulse sidearm barking, each shot aimed to disable, to create chaos. He used the circular layout of the observatory to his advantage, a human ghost darting between holographic projectors and ancient stone plinths. Then it happened. A searing pain lanced through his leg as an energy bolt caught him, sending him sprawling. As Forlag's guards closed in, the world seemed to slow. The smell of ozone and burnt crystal filled his nostrils, and the roar of battle faded, replaced by another, older sound, the desperate, terrified screams from the Cygnus rebellion. He saw Jessa's face, her hand outstretched, her eyes pleading as the Corsair boarding ramp slammed shut. He'd made the call: save the civilian transport, sacrifice his partner. The guilt had been a cold, hard knot in his gut for years. But now, staring down the barrels of Xylosian energy rifles, the memory didn't break him. It forged him. That was then. This was now. He would not fail again. He would not abandon another. With a roar of pure, unadulterated human defiance, Cale surged back to his feet, ignoring the fire in his leg. He became a whirlwind of motion, his battered body a testament to sheer grit. He took hits, his armor groaning, but he gave back far worse, creating an opening, a desperate, slim chance. Lyra, seeing Cale about to be overwhelmed, her father's fading words about adaptability echoing in her mind, true strength lies in adaptation, embracing change, made a radical decision. Her father, the prime sequence, Cale, it was all interconnected. She whirled towards the main console displaying the swirling, complex genetic code. Her amulet pulsed with an almost painful intensity, its light so bright it cast stark shadows across the embattled room. It could interface. She was sure of it. Not to destroy the data, but to set it free. With trembling fingers, she slammed her amulet against the console's primary interface. The ancient Xylosian tech and the human relic sparked, a shriek of protesting energy filling the air. Then, a new data stream began to flow. Not into storage, but out. She was broadcasting a condensed, heavily encrypted summary of the prime sequence, the undeniable scientific proof of shared human Xylosian ancestry, the potential for hybrid vigor, the benefits of their mingled genetic code, to the entire conclave network, which, in the chaos, was still live. It was an insane gamble. It could expose her family to utter ruin, brand them as heretics beyond salvation, or it could rally unexpected allies, shatter the old paradigms. Lord Malachor Forlag, who had been watching Cale's defiant last stand with a predatory smile, froze. His head snapped towards the console, his eyes widening in disbelief, then dawning fury, as he realized what Lyra had done. The sheer, unmitigated audacity of her act stunned him into momentary silence. As the encrypted data burst surged across the conclave network, an act of unparalleled defiance, Malachor Forlag finally found his voice, a roar of pure, incandescent rage. You've signed your own death warrant, Valeriana. And your human filth with it. He lunged, not for the console, but for Lyra, his face a mask of murderous intent. But Cale, battered, bleeding, but impossibly, stubbornly, unbroken, threw himself forward, intercepting Forlag's charge with a defiant, guttural cry. Their personal duel, the human mercenary against the Xylosian lord, began amidst the crackle of failing systems and the sudden, stunned silence from beyond the shattered doors, as the political shockwave of Lyra's broadcast started to ripple through the heart of Ethelgard. Chaol parried a vicious blow from Malachor Forlag, the impact jarring his already wounded arm. The Xylosian lord's energy scythe hissed, narrowly missing Chaol's throat. "Your primitive struggles are amusing, human," Forlag sneered, his handsome face contorted in a mask of rage and aristocratic disdain. The broadcast of the prime sequence data had clearly infuriated him beyond measure. "But this is where your story, and the Valerius delusion, ends." Chaol spat blood, a metallic tang filling his mouth. "Don't write the eulogy just yet, Peacock," he rasped, his voice raw. "I'm full of surprises." From the smoking ruins of a noble house, a single broadcast message had ignited a firestorm in the conclave, and Chaol Wark knew, with chilling certainty, the fight for simple survival had just escalated into a war for the future of more than one species. The duel was brutal. Chaol, fueled by adrenaline and a stubborn refusal to die, fought with a ferocity that seemed to shock the Xylosian lord. He was indeed using primitive human tenacity, a raw, unpredictable style that contrasted sharply with Forlag's elegant, practiced combat forms. Forlag was skilled, no doubt, his movements a deadly dance, but there was an arrogance to him, an overconfidence that Chaol ruthlessly exploited. He feinted, he ducked, he used the debris-strewn floor of the observatory to his advantage, forcing Forlag to fight on his terms. Each blow Chaol landed felt like a small victory against overwhelming odds. Lyra, having unleashed her digital bombshell, didn't just cower. Her initial shock at the violence transformed into a cold, focused anger. She knew her father was gravely injured, that Chaol was fighting for their lives. Remembering her training, and drawing on her intimate knowledge of Xylosian physiology, knowledge Chaol lacked, she moved to support him. Her energy staff became an extension of her will, deflecting blows aimed at Chaol's blind spots, creating momentary openings, calling out warnings about Forlag's attack patterns. His left side, Chaol. He overcommits on the spin. Even Lord Valerius, slumped against the damaged console but still conscious, played his part. With a trembling hand, he managed to activate a final, localized defense protocol, a series of disorienting sonic pulses and targeted gravitic distortions within the observatory itself. It wasn't enough to stop Forlag's elite troops, but it sowed confusion, disrupted their coordination, and further disoriented the remaining Valerius household guards who were now battling alongside the invaders, their loyalties fractured by the unfolding chaos. Then, the tide began to turn. The first sign was a subtle shift in the sounds of battle from outside the observatory, new weapon signatures, different tactical callouts. Guards from other Xylosian houses, those still monitoring the conclave network, had reacted to Lyra's shocking broadcast. Some were undoubtedly outraged, but others, perhaps those already wavering in their support for Forlag's hardline faction, or those who had secretly chafed under his dominance, or even houses with their own quiet Valerius sympathies, saw an opportunity, or a duty. They weren't arriving to reinforce House Forlag. They were arriving to restore order, to investigate, and to witness firsthand the apparent treachery of one of their most powerful peers. The coordinated assault on the Valerius estate began to crumble from the outside in. Forlag's elite, realizing they were being caught between Chaol's desperate defense and the arrival of unknown Xylosian forces, faltered. Their arrogance gave way to uncertainty. It was the opening Chaol needed. With a final, desperate lunge, he bypassed Forlag's energy side, driving his armored shoulder into the Xylosian lord's midsection. The impact was bone-jarring. Forlag staggered back, breathless, his perfect aristocratic composure shattered. Before he could recover, Conclave security forces, their neutral gray armor a stark contrast to the house colors, stormed into the observatory. Lord Malachar Forlag, architect of so much death and political maneuvering, found himself disarmed and restrained, his face a mask of disbelief and impotent fury. Defeated. Humiliated. His reign of terror, for now, was over. In the immediate aftermath, Ethelgard was in turmoil. The very foundations of Xylosian society felt shaken. Lyra's broadcast of the prime sequence's implications, the undeniable proof of shared human Xylosian ancestry, the potential for unprecedented strength through genetic diversity, had forced an emergency re-evaluation. Some traditionalist houses were predictably outraged, calling for the complete censure of House Valerius. Others, the more progressive or simply opportunistic, were intrigued, seeing a potential new path for their people, a way to break from millennia of self-imposed stagnation. House Valerius, though its estate was heavily damaged and its